it is a set of repetitive self-moderating behaviors that perhaps we've all indulged in at some point in our lives. It's just that we tend to see it a lot more in neurodivergent individuals, and that's why it's come to the fore a bit more. People with autism do struggle with all aspects of their emotional management, whether it's kind of recognizing, processing, expressing, and over time they build certain adaptive mechanisms that enables them to process things or moderate or hold things down in a way that's generally seen as the norm or is more acceptable in various social environments. And that over a period of time translates into a set of behaviors or kind of expressions, I'd say, that feel easier for them to manage in a specific situation. There are people with autism also have an altered kind of sensory perception in many ways. They have sensory sensitivities or sensory hypersensitivities, which then makes them more susceptible to using these mechanisms as a way of managing these sensitivities. Suffice to say that it's a natural coping mechanism and a strategy that they can actually use to their advantage to actually manage themselves when things feel overwhelming, as can happen quite a lot with autism. Say, for example, spinning round and round, or hand flapping, flicking your hands in front of your eyes. They could be vocal noises, hums, um, um, perhaps even singing part of a song repetitively, uh, perhaps repeating words or ends of words at times in almost like a rhythmic pattern. These are all a few examples. So they could be sensory stims as well, where one might sniff something repeatedly, for example, and it may vary depending on context of what they're doing, where they are. And some are fairly comfortable because they're quite oblivious to what's happening around them. Other more kind of socially aware or sensitive neurodivergent individuals might stim quite cautiously, and it might not be evident. So they might kind of just keep doing this with their hands, and no one might ever notice unless I point attention to it. So yes, it can vary, and it, again, it's about the intention behind the stimming, though it happens at a subconscious level many a time. Uh, Over time, some people are aware and become aware that they are stimming, and it can be used for various purposes. It might be used for kind of processing some very difficult emotions, or it might be just about processing emotions generally. It might be about moderating responses, or it might be a sensory thing. It's not always a sign of distress. I mean, the difficulties people with autism have is not is around regulating their emotions sometimes. So it might be uncontrolled excitement or joy, and they might stim. So we see lots of children, for example, with more obvious autism. We've seen them flapping when they're happy, and that's a form of stimming, but they're happy. So it's not necessarily that, but it's also worth remembering that sometimes emotional expression may not always be congruent to context. It's very situation, and it may not be kind of situation friendly as well. So there might be a degree of incongruity that one might see, which might make one wonder, why are they doing this in this situation? But that then needs to be understood within the context of individuals with autism struggling to know how to moderate themselves and struggling to understand the social context, and it has to be taken as such. Intervening when it is potentially harmful is, of course, required because it's all about safety and risk management. But most stims are innocuous, and it's more about understanding why that's happening, understanding the purpose, and understanding what the consequences are for the child. How does it help them, or how is it impacting them? And with that knowledge, one is in a better position as a parent or as a teacher to create a more conducive environment where they're enabling the child to learn to self-manage and process their difficulties um, in a more kind of regulated way. But whether it's about creating sensory friendly environments at home, or about having a place at school where they know they could take themselves out to if they feel the need to stim or they're getting overwhelmed. And it's about creating general environments where it's not about judgment, but it's about acceptance and understanding. And that goes a long way. I think it'd be very important for us to remember that stimming is an absolutely acceptable and natural way of coping for neurodivergent individuals. Um, we need to move forward with better awareness, moderation of our viewpoints, and enabling environments wherein those with autism can feel able to express themselves freely without fear of judgment.